This is Stephen Schmidt for InsiderIowa.com. The United States Supreme Court will have a vacancy soon. Justice John Paul Stevens is retiring. He's an older gentleman. And I think he wanted to give President Obama a chance to replace him while the Democrats still have a majority in the Senate. As you know, the confirmation process involves a nomination. The Senate Judiciary Committee has hearings, and then if it approves of the nominee, it goes to the entire Senate, and then the Senate has to vote with a majority. Now, let me make a comment here, which is that I don't know who's going to be nominated. I think President Obama will pick someone who does not have too large a judicial record. In other words, someone who may not have been a judge and therefore will be a lot harder to nail down by the opponents to the nomination. Because one of the problems is if you've been a judge and you've written a lot of cases and you have a big record, you've said things that then can be used against you in the nomination process. So my feeling is you'll pick someone who does not have that kind of a record. I think you'll have to pick a Protestant because Stevens is the only Protestant on the Supreme Court in a country that is largely Protestant. There are Catholics and 2 Jews on the court now, but no Protestants once he quits. I think he may pick a woman because Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the other elderly Supreme Court justice, is in very poor health, and she's likely to quit the court very soon. So I think Obama will want to make sure there's another woman so that there are 2 women on the court. And my own view about the Supreme Court is that the stakes now have become too high, partly because the court hasn't changed very much as an institution in 200 and some years. I would like to see the court enlarged. I think 9 justices is simply not enough for the kind of society that we live in. I would like to see it doubled, have twice as many justices. And then you can have a process whereby justices can recuse themselves from cases where they may have a conflict of interest, which is now very difficult to do because if 1 or 2 justices recuse themselves, there aren't enough justices really to make a credible case. I also want to see the Supreme Court change so that justices are not appointed for life. That may have been a wise thing to do when people lived for an entire generation and nothing much in society really changed in a sense in terms of social values and so on. But in 2010, in the 21st century, we are a very fast-paced society, and I think it would be nice to have justices basically go back to the real world every 10 years. Presidents then appoint new ones, and it still would prevent presidents from controlling the court because presidents only have 8 years maximum to be in the White House, and if you have 10-year terms, those would overlap with the president, so there would be still a lot of independence. I think it would make the Supreme Court closer to the reality of American society. It would increase or maintain its credibility. It would make it easier for them to handle the big caseload that they're doing. And even though that isn't going to happen this year with the replacement for Justice Stevens, I think it is a discussion worth having. I hope you'll follow the nomination process. We will report on it here as it unfolds. I think it's going to be not very pleasant when the confirmation process finally begins in the fall, but it'll be very interesting to see the clash of ideology and personalities. This is Stephen Schmidt for InsiderIowa.com.